In the year 175 AD, the most powerful man in the world opened a letter and learned that his best friend of 20 years had just stabbed him in the back. Not with a knife, with something worse. His most trusted general, the man he had raised up, defended, and loved like a brother, had declared himself Emperor of Rome, which meant only one of them could stay alive. Every advisor said the same thing: crush him, make an example of him. That is what betrayal deserves. But what this emperor did instead was so strange, so completely opposite to human nature, that historians still argue about it 2,000 years later. And hidden inside his response is the answer to a question you may be carrying right now. What do you do when someone you trusted betrays you? Stay with me until the end, because the final twist in this story is the part nobody sees coming. And before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there? I read every comment on this channel. The emperor's name was Marcus Aurelius. You may know him as the author of Meditations, the private journal that became the most famous book of wisdom ever written. But in 175 AD, Marcus was not sitting in a quiet library. He was standing in the mud on the northern frontier, fighting a war that would not end. For years, everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. A plague had swept through the empire, killing millions, including people Marcus loved. Barbarian tribes were pouring across the Danube River. The treasury was so empty that Marcus had sold the palace furniture, his own family's gold and silk, to pay his soldiers rather than raise taxes on struggling citizens. He was tired. His health was failing. His hands shook in the cold. But there was one thing Marcus never worried about: the East, because the East was held by Avidius Cassius. Cassius was everything a Roman general should be: brilliant, fearless, ruthless with enemies, loyal to Rome. When rebellion broke out in Egypt, Cassius crushed it. When the Parthian Empire attacked, Cassius drove them back. Marcus trusted him with half the known world: Syria, Egypt, the richest provinces of the empire. They were not just emperor and general. They wrote letters to each other. Marcus praised him in the Senate. Some historians say Marcus loved him like family. If there was one man Marcus Aurelius never had to doubt, it was Avidius Cassius. Remember that, because it is exactly the person we never doubt who can hurt us the most. In the spring of 175 AD, a rumor raced across the empire faster than any messenger could ride. Marcus Aurelius is dead. He wasn't. He was sick, badly sick, but alive. The rumor, however, reached the east before the truth did, and in Syria, Avidius Cassius made a decision. He did not wait for confirmation. He did not send a letter asking if his friend was alive. He declared himself Emperor of Rome. Within days, Egypt swore loyalty to him. Syria followed. The richest third of the empire, the provinces Marcus had trusted him to protect, now belonged to Cassius. And then came the worst part. Word arrived in the east. Marcus Aurelius is alive. Cassius now had a choice. He could kneel, admit his mistake, and beg forgiveness, or he could keep the crown he had stolen. He kept it. Now put yourself in Marcus's place for a moment. Really feel it. The man you defended when others whispered against him, the man you gave power, wealth, and honor, the man you called a friend for 20 years, heard a rumor that you died and celebrated. He measured your throne for himself while you were still breathing. What happens inside your chest when you imagine that? The heat in the face, the tightness in the stomach, the voice that says, "After everything I did for him." That feeling has a name. Every human who has ever been betrayed knows it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, the most disciplined mind of his age, felt it too. His own writings from these months show a man wrestling with darkness. And his generals fed that darkness. Execute the traitor's family, burn his cities, let all of Rome see what betrayal costs. One word from Marcus, and it would be done. Instead, Marcus Aurelius called his soldiers together, And according to the historian Cassius Dio, he gave one of the strangest speeches in Roman history. He told his men, in essence, "I have only one fear in this war. Not that Cassius will defeat me. My fear is that he will die, or harm himself, before I get the chance to forgive him." Let that sink in. His army expected a declaration of vengeance. Their emperor announced his intention to pardon. He said that if the matter came before him, he would spare Cassius's life, because turning an enemy back into a friend was the only true victory a philosopher could win. Was this weakness? His soldiers didn't think so. They had watched this man sell his own furniture to pay them. They knew the difference between a man too soft to strike and a man too strong to need to. Here is what Marcus understood, the idea at the very center of Stoic philosophy. Cassius had taken provinces, armies, gold, titles. But there was a list of things Cassius could not take, no matter what he did. He could not take Marcus's character. He could not take his judgment, his patience, his honesty, his self-command. He could not force Marcus to become cruel. The betrayal was Cassius's action, but the bitterness, that would have been Marcus's choice. And Marcus refused to let a traitor choose who he became. In his journal, he had written a line for exactly this moment, words he now had to live. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. Not to defeat him, not to humiliate him, to refuse to become him. Marcus never got the chance to forgive Avidius Cassius. 3 months into the rebellion, Cassius's own officers looked at the 2 men asking for their loyalty. One who had stolen a crown from a sick friend, and one who was marching east, promising mercy. And they made their decision. They killed Cassius themselves. Then they cut off his head and sent it to Marcus as a gift, expecting a reward. Marcus's reaction? He refused to look at it. He turned away in grief and ordered the head buried with honor. He did not celebrate. Witnesses say he mourned, not the traitor, but the friend, and the forgiveness that would now never happen. Then he did something even more remarkable. When Cassius's private letters were captured, letters that would have named every senator and governor who had secretly supported the rebellion, Marcus burned them without reading a single page. Think about what that means. He held in his hands the names of everyone who had wished him dead, total power to purge every hidden enemy. And he burned it, so that he would never be tempted to hate men for words he was never meant to see, and so the empire could heal instead of drowning in trials and executions. He pardoned Cassius's family. He asked the Senate to execute no one. The rebellion that should have drowned Rome in blood ended with almost none. Not because Marcus was weak, because he was the only man strong enough to end it that way. Now, back to you, because you are probably not an emperor, but I would bet money you know this pain. The business partner who cut you out, the friend who spoke behind your back, the person you loved who chose someone else the moment you were down. Betrayal is the oldest wound there is, and here is what the story of Marcus teaches about surviving it. 3 steps you can use this week. Step 1. Separate the theft from the damage. When you're betrayed, take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On one side, write what they actually took: money, an opportunity, a relationship, time. On the other side, write what only you can surrender: your integrity, your peace, your ability to trust wisely again, the person you are. Cassius took provinces. He could not take Marcus. Most of our suffering comes from confusing those 2 lists, from handing over the second column voluntarily. Step 2. Refuse to become them. The desire for revenge feels like power, but look closer. It is obedience. It means the person who hurt you is now writing your script, your thoughts at 3 a.m., your words, your next decisions. The moment you act with the same dishonesty or cruelty they showed you, they haven't just wounded you, they've recruited you. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. Every day you remain honest, calm, and kind is a day they lost. Step 3. Burn the letters.
Marcus destroyed the evidence that would have fed his resentment forever. You have letters too, the old messages you reread at midnight, the mutual friends you interrogate, the mental courtroom where you replay the trial again and again, always winning, always miserable. Stop collecting evidence for a case that will never be heard. Burning the letters is not saying it didn't matter. It is saying, I choose my future over their past. One more thing, and this is important. Forgiveness is not reunion. Marcus forgave Cassius. He was still marching an army east to remove him from power. You can release the poison and keep the boundary. Those are two different decisions. Make them separately.
Marcus Aurelius died 5 years later, still on that frontier, still doing his duty. The man betrayed by his closest friend is remembered 20 centuries later as the last of Rome's great emperors, and the traitor is remembered only as a footnote in the story of the man he could not break. Because in the end, betrayal reveals two characters, theirs and yours. You only get to write one of them. So here is my question for you, and I genuinely want to know. What is one letter you are ready to burn this week? Write it in the comments. Sometimes saying it out loud, even to strangers, is the moment the weight starts to lift. If this story reached you, the like button tells YouTube to show it to someone else who might be carrying the same wound. And there's someone in your life who needs to hear this today. Send it to them. Subscribe so you don't miss upcoming fables. Until then, the obstacle is the way.